Please support the bar by subscribe, and sharing my cast. Follow my social media at Facebook, Instagram, Gab, Parler, BitChute, YouTube, DLive, Twitch, CloutHub, and Rumble, or join my Subscribe Star. Make a donation by clicking on the links on the description box. I am a listener-supported show, so any of the above is greatly appreciated. Help me grow and spread the truth, since the mainstream media obviously does not want to support truth. All links are listed on the description box. God bless you and enjoy.
Welcome to the Speak Uneasy, a safe space where cancel culture does not exist, because we are in a different prohibition era.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Speak Uneasy with me, the bartender. So, to start off the show with our random read of the night, this comes from the book of John, verse 5 through verse 10. Walk in the light. Oh, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one. Here we go. Then this is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie, and do not the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ his Son cleanseth us from all sin. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins, and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar, and his word is not in us. Oh my good. That pause I just did. Okay, that was the book of John, verse 5 through verse 10. Walk in the light. Now, let me explain something before I kind of decipher what this kind of message is to me coming from God. The pause that I just had, it was like the Holy Spirit just hit me. Like, whew. That's why I had that pause, and I still feel the presence, and I picked this randomly, okay? We're getting pretty close to things happening here in this country, and it's about to get crazy. Now, I've been following a lot of the financial stuff going on, and I know I'm kind of veering off of this. This is going to all come together as I explain this, okay? Now, I see a lot of the things happening financially. I'm in Bitcoin, and I see that thing just flying up, like taking off, okay? I also invest in Theta, and that has taken off as well. I am in physical silver. It's just a matter of time where that thing is going to skyrocket as well, okay? And at the same time, I think that the financial system with the banks it's just gonna go kaput. Now, we're in the cusp of things about to happen. There's going to be changes in this country, okay? And me picking this particular verse, walk in the light, this is exactly why God told me to do this. Is because I'm trying to tell you people that we all have to walk in the light. We're all with imperfections, okay? We're always going to have sin. We're always, we're not perfect. But what the Lord wants us to do Okay, the Lord knows that we are not perfect at all. But what the Lord wants us to do is strive for that perfection. Is to strive for it. Okay? I accept myself as having all these sins. I am not perfect. I don't call myself righteous. And I have these deep conversations with a lot of people that I'm close to, especially at work. Very, very people that I recognize as very dear friends to me. I have these deep conversations about God and spirituality because I want them to know the truth. And the truth is God. And this particular verse, this is God talking. He's using me to talk to you. Okay? This is telling me, actually, I already know what this is. I already know what it means to me. But what I think what God is trying to do, he's trying to use me to tell you, if you have not built that relationship with God yet, this is telling you through me that God is the light. And that's just as obvious as it gets. Okay, like I said, I'm with imperfection. I sin. Okay, I recognize that I sin, but I strive. I strive to do the right thing all the time. I try to walk in the Lord's path as much as I can, and it's a hard thing. It's very difficult. And we all have to accept that it's a difficult road to walk in. It really is. It even gets more difficult when we start getting persecuted. Will you stand? Will you walk that path no matter what people think about you or no matter what people do to you? Even if it's family members, are you strong? Is your faith strong enough to just walk in that road no matter what? I have grown to accept the possibilities of losing friends, possibly family members, because my faith in God is the most important thing in my life. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. It's not because I wanted to do this. This was never in my, and if you've listened to my podcast before, I've always said from the get-go that this was never in my deck of cards. But one day, God told me that I had to spread the word. And this is the best I can think of how to spread the word. Because you have free will. You have the choice whether you want to stick around and listen to what I got to say to you. Or you have the choice whether or not to even listen at all. But this is exactly why I'm doing this, is because of messages like this to spread to people. This is all spiritual if you haven't figured that out. Everything that's going on in this country that's been bad, or even around the world, it's all been spiritual. Especially for you guys who are Q followers and white hat followers, you got to understand this. God is the one moving the chess pieces here, okay? It's not the president, it's not white hats, it's not Q. Yes, we do need people in that side to help take away corruption and all that, but ultimately it's God who is moving the chess pieces. And instead of putting our blind faith in something that we don't even know completely about, like Q or white hats or whatever, we need to put more faith and prayer into God, because He decides what's what. He's going to decide how this world goes. We have to look at the bigger picture. We do. And I've been lost in politics for a long time. I really have. It's just this year has become a transitional part of my life. I'm sorry, not this year. I forgot. We're in 2021. And by the way, Happy New Year's, guys. I'm going to embrace 2020. Although it was one of the worst years ever, it is also one of the best years I've had, because that is the year that my relationship with God got stronger. That is the year that God gave me an assignment to do for him. And I am honored by God to be doing this. I am so honored. Look at the verse that he gave to me to say, to read to you, and for you to figure out what message that is. Walk in the light. Walk in the light. How obvious is that? That was just a random read. It's a random read for a reason. I just opened the Bible and land where I land. I didn't go out searching for these things. I don't ever. The way I read, this is the way I read scripture, okay? If I want to have a conversation with God, I do, by prayer. I pray to him, and the way I pray is through having conversations with God. That's the way I pray. I don't do like an Our Father or whatever. My definition of prayer is having a conversation with God. Okay? And the way I do this, when I want to receive God's message, I open the Bible randomly. I read it, and I don't take it for the interpretation that I want to. I take it and I try to interpret the best I can to see what God is telling me. Okay? It could be bad news. It could be good news. It doesn't matter. It's how I think the Lord would want me to receive that message. But this tonight, and I know I've read other things that were very powerful, but this, the first Monday of 2021, okay? I picked this. Or I didn't pick this. The Lord picked it for me to read to you. Walk in the light. Could it be a warning too, to walk in the light? The door is closing. The door is closing. And if we don't have that relationship with God, then what's going to, what happens when the door closes? What's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You ain't going to heaven. And I'm not trying to force you to have a relationship. What I'm telling you is that these are messages, and it's warnings too. It's not to force you. It's up to you what you want to do with your life. Honestly, and my opinion is, this is not even our life. This is God's life. He's given it to us for us to learn and to grow and become, and see if we're able to become good spirits after we leave this earth. This is like school. Life is like school. Okay? And in order for us to graduate, which is to go to heaven, is we have to learn and better ourselves in this world. And I know I'm going long on this random read thing, but this is a heavy read for me. And I don't think the message is for me per se, because my relationship with God, building it last year, has been the best it's ever been. And I have a feeling that this year, my relationship with God is going to get even stronger. And I still fight sin every day. Every day. I'm not perfect. I'm not claiming to be perfect. I'm not claiming to be righteous. I'm just letting you know that it's okay to be with flaws, but have that relationship with God, and God will be there for you. So once again, man, that was a heavy read for me, for you, through me, for you. Okay? Once again, that was the book of John, chapter 1, verse 5 through verse 10. Walk in the light. Now tonight's cocktail is going to be a freestyle cocktail that I'm curious of. I'm curious to make this cocktail. I mean, I've made it before, but for you people, okay, for the listeners out there, I want to make this cocktail because I thought it was an interesting cocktail to make. Okay, so I'm basically gonna make a whiskey sour, but here's the twist. Okay, I'm gonna be using Japanese whiskey, and the Japanese whiskey I'm using tonight is Nikka Days by Nikka. It's a blended whiskey. And I also have here some yuzu juice. If for anybody out there who doesn't know what yuzu is, it's Japanese citrus. So this is what I'm going to make. I'm going to call it this. Japanese lemon drop. Okay? I'm going to call this self-made cocktail lemon drop. So let's go ahead and start off making the cocktail here. Now I got my shaker, and here's another thing that's going to be different with this. Usually you're going to use simple syrup, right? Well, I don't have any more simple syrup. I'm out. What kind of bar is out of simple syrup? Like, you know, why are you so unprepared? Well, I'll tell you what. I got something else here that I'm going to use. I'm going to be using maple syrup in substitution for my simple syrup. Now, this drink is really going to be interesting. So, to start off, we're going to pour... now, you can use simple syrup if you want. But I'm going to use maple syrup because I don't have any simple syrup. And this is either going to make or break the drink. And this is going to be the first time I'm actually using simple syrup in substitution for simple syrup. I'm sorry. I'm using maple syrup in substitution for simple syrup. Okay? So let's start off by pouring about... I'm going to go half an ounce because maple syrup is very strong. Like, it's very sweet and thick. So I'm going to put half an ounce of maple syrup into my shaker. Okay. Next, we're going to put about 2 ounces of Japanese whiskey. Okay. 2 ounces. First ounce in the shaker. Second ounce in the shaker. Okay. Next, I got my Japanese yuzu drink here. Okay. This is called yuzu lemon. Yuzu lemon. Yuzu lemon. Okay. And this drink I got this drink from a Japanese grocery store back in California. Tokyo Central is the grocery store that I went to buy this. we're gonna go about an ounce of yuzu. Okay, and this is a drink, so they put sugar in this. Man, this is gonna be sweet. Okay, so we got that in there. As always, I have my glass being chilled right now with ice and water. Now we're going to add ice into the shaker. All right, let's close this up. Let me secure the, let me put the cap back on the maple syrup because I don't want it to spill all over my desk. And yeah, I'm doing it on my desk. You know, one day when I do this on video, I already have a bar set up. So there will be a time where this is going to be all video and this all will make sense. The bar theme will make so much sense as soon as I start doing the video. I'm also before I shake that up, just a little heads up. I am working on a website, my own website, and I'm going to set up like a 2-tier or 3-tier membership system. And I'm really hustling this as much as I can. Like when I say hustling, like I'm putting so much work into what I'm trying to do with my podcast. I'm trying to expand it because eventually I want to do this full time. I need to leave my job. I really do. One day I will explain, but for now it's safer for me not to mention anything about work, as much as I want to say so many things. But anyways, let's go ahead and shake this up. So usually with whiskey sours, you'd probably put a egg white in there, give it a dry shake first. But me personally, I don't like using the egg white. Not for this drink. Okay, so I'm going to empty out the glass that's been pre-chilled. All right, that's emptied out. The glass is nice and cool. Now I'm going to put my sphere ice into the glass. As soon as I get this thing. Man, this thing's winning. All right, man, I'm excited to try this one out. This is like an experimental drink right here, and I'm doing it on the show. So this is cool. It's going to either make it or break it with that syrup though. All right, let's give this bad boy a pour. All right, we poured it in the glass. Now, man, the suspense on this one is really, really exciting. All right, here we go. Lemon drop. Kampai. Okay. Let me give it another sip. It's good. But let me give it another sip. Hold on. Oh, wow. Okay, so the whiskey is buried. The whiskey is buried in there. Like, there's no whiskey taste. You feel the whiskey going down as you drink. The sweetness, the syrup just covers the sweetness, but the lemon, the yuzu juice, you get the strong yuzu. Oh, now I'm really feeling it. I'm feeling the heat down on my chest, and I just took 2 sips. The yuzu, you taste it. The sweetness, you taste it. It doesn't taste like maple syrup at all. You get like I said, it's like if you've ever had a lemon drop candy, that's exactly how it tastes. But with a yuzu, it's a different type of lemon taste. Okay, that's why it's called a Japanese citrus, yuzu. Okay, this is a good drink. Okay, this is a very drinkable drink, but here's the problem with this drink. There's one problem. It tastes good, okay? And because the whiskey's buried in there somewhere, if you keep drinking this thing, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen if you just keep drinking, because you're not going to taste the whiskey. It's buried in there. And those type of drinks are very dangerous. So let me take another swig of this. Man, it's a sweet drink. I should have added another half ounce of whiskey, maybe. I should have done 2.5 ounces of whiskey, but regardless, it still tastes good, and it's very dangerous if you just keep drinking and drinking and drinking without knowing that there's whiskey in there. So, I present to you we'll call it the Japanese lemon drop, okay? The Japanese lemon drop. Kanpai. And on to the show we go. So today I have a few things that I want to talk about, as always. The first thing I want to talk about here is an article that I found on stupid.news, and I love going to this place because there's so many articles here that interest me. Not because of just the plain stupidity and the entertainment value of it, but these things are actually being implemented, and people they don't understand that these agendas are being pushed. So not only do I do this for the entertainment value, the reason for this, like I said, and I know I'm repeating myself, is because I want people to know that these things are actually being implemented. So let me start with the first article that I found here, and let's see. This was written in December of the 28th of December last year. And this was by the news editors of stupid.news, I should say. The title reads, Critical Race Theory, a Ruling Class Ideology. It is embraced by today's political and cultural elites because it serves their interests. Oh, here it is. The article is by Joanna Williams and republished from spikedonline.com. 2020 has been shaped by 2 things. Charlie Victor 19 and our response to it has dominated every aspect of our lives. But something else has gripped us this year. 2. It's called anti-racism. In May, shocked by the killing of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police officer, people all around the world emerged from lockdown to participate in Bravo Lima Mike protests. In the UK, statues fell, public figures knelt in solidarity, and many people blacked out their social media posts for a day. Schools, universities, and workplaces stepped up diversity training and anti-racist initiatives. Now, I'm going to pause it right there. Okay. Yes. Everything that was written so far is true. Okay. In my line of work, it was very magnified. And like I said, I'm not ready to say what I do. I'm not ready to say anything about work, but this was magnified a lot. Okay? It was magnified. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to continue. There have been protests against racism in the past, of course, but this year has been different. Never before have people on every continent, in countries and towns facing their own unique problems, turned out in such huge numbers to support the same cause. Never before have books like White Fragility, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race and How to Be an Anti-Racist, become international bestsellers. And never before has a protest movement had such establishment backing. In the UK, Bravo Lima Mike has been publicly endorsed by the royal family, the Football Premier League, and senior politicians. Multinational corporations have got in on the act too. Ice cream maker Ben & Jerry's, they have a history of being super left, okay, has pledged to do all it can to dismantle white supremacy, which is funny because it's owned by two white guys. While elite universities have issued statements denouncing their own institutional racism. Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. All right? Now, I have grown up since the mid-70s. Okay? I have grown up since the mid-70s. And as I was growing, mind you, I'm not black, okay? I don't identify as black. I guess some people would use the word of identify as fill in the blank. I don't identify as a black person, okay? Although, while I was growing up, okay, I dove deep into the hip-hop culture. And if you people don't know anything about the hip-hop culture, it's heavily influenced by black, what's the word I'm looking for? Not tradition, but culture. It's heavily influenced by black culture, okay? There was a point that I wanted to be a black person because I thought it was so cool, okay? And this was in the 80s and, slightly in the 90s as well. I didn't act, how do I put it? Because I am an Asian person, okay? I would identify as an Asian, and if you want to get more specific, an Asian / Pacific Islander. I really don't want to say what I am, but a good idea of how I would identify as an Asian / Pacific Islander. So, as I was growing up, I was heavily influenced by the hip hop culture, which was heavily influenced by black culture. Okay. And I, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I thought like being black was the cool thing to be. And as every young person who's into the culture of hip hop, they'd probably feel the same way too. The music, breakdancing, even regular dancing was all cool. It was very cool, right? So as far as the racism goes, I did not exactly see the racism. I've experienced racism myself, but the things that people are claiming to be racist nowadays, it's not what it is. It's not racist at all. It's more like oh, you don't agree with what I say, so now I'm going to call you this. Right? Am I the only one out there who thinks like that? Like, if I disagree with what you believe in, now you're automatically calling me whatever ist there is, whether it be racist, whether it be or a phobe. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting to see that it's 2021. Like, we're not in the freaking 50s and 60s anymore. I think we're way past the burning crosses in front of houses. I think we're way past that, right? I mean, there were songs out there that kind of pushed that there was, quote, racism out there, and there were groups out there that were pushing stuff like that. I'd rather not say who they are. I mean, I'd listen to them, and I did buy it for quite some time. I did buy a little bit into it, like I believed it. Right? And I started looking at white people as the enemy when I was younger. I'm talking about when I was younger. And I'm talking about way young. When I started listening to certain, I'm not going to say, I don't want to put the groups out there on blast because, who knows, right? But there was a lot of music out there that kind of pushed, like, the white man is bad and all this stuff. Which is very, very funny because my best friend, who I've grown up with since high school, he's a white guy. And I love him to death, and I would die for him if need be. And I'm pretty sure that he'd do it for me too. And I've had my rough moments in life where he was there. Okay? I've grown out of seeing people for what color they are. And we all should. We should always judge people by how they treat us, not because of the color of a skin, right? Let's face it. There is no all for one for everybody. We're all significant in every way. We have differences, right? Some people are tall, some people are short. Unfortunately, I'm short. Some people have pale skin. Some people have dark skin. Some people have brown skin, right? Some people are thin. Some people are fat, right? We're all different. So it's okay to be different. And I don't understand why we don't embrace being different. We all have different, we all grew up in different cultures. Growing up in my era, I learned to love every race out there because especially the black race, the culture. I learned to love it so much because of all the influences I had growing up, listening to the music, dancing. I learned to love it. And even to this day, I still enjoy the music. Not necessarily the new stuff, but the stuff that I grew up with. I embrace that stuff. And I'm so passionate especially when it comes to music, right? Hip hop, soul, R&B, blues. Music was my passion when I was young. It still burns inside of me. Music does, right? Because this is how I grew up. Now, I know I'm veering off this article here, but I want people to have an understanding of why this whole thing is smoke and mirrors. It's all lies. It's all designed to divide people. And when you divide people, it's easy to conquer them. And I don't understand why people don't see that. R&B music has gotten me through a lot of rough stuff as I was growing up. And I had a lot of issues growing up, having a broken home, having to get over somebody I fell in love with the very first time I fell in love as a teenager. It took me 2 years to get over that hump. And a lot of it had to do with R&B music helping me get through it. Okay? And then the death of my younger brother. Oh, that was one of the biggest things in my life that I had to endure being young. And hip hop and R&B music got me through it. It kept me sane. Okay? Not to mention the fact that I did become a little bit religious. Not as if not like I am now, but I was able to kind of like mature from going through stuff like that. And now it's like I'm on a different level of maturity now. Although there's still things, I still do things, I still have things that of me that still reflect me being in my 20s, which is, I mean, it's all good. We joke around all that sometimes, so that's probably normal for everybody. But I just wanted to veer off this article for a minute to explain a little bit history of myself and why I think this is all smoke and mirrors. Okay? Because I embrace the especially the R&B and soul culture. I delve into that deep because I love to sing. Okay? I may not be that great at it, but there's something about good love songs that make you feel so good inside. And also sets the mood with somebody that you care about, and you can share a moment with them with that music in the background. Okay? So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now I'm going to continue with this article. What is critical race theory? CRT begins with a challenge of the scientific racism of the 19th and early 20th century. In the days of empire, colonial exploitation and slavery were justified by a belief that white people were physically, mentally, and morally superior to other people they ruled over. This view extended to the working class at home, who were portrayed as genetically distinct from and inferior to the upper class. This biological understanding of race began to be called into question after the Second World War, although its legacy continued to play out in apartheid-era South Africa. Jim Crow laws in the American South and discrimination in the UK. Critical race theories are not the first to point out that race is socially constructed. That is, it is not a naturally occurring phenomenon, but created and made meaningful by people collectively, over time and place. Few today disagree with this point, but whereas a previous generation of anti-racists challenged the social significance attributed to biological differences to argue that there was one race, the human race, and I agree with that statement, and emphasized universal traits that create a common humanity irrespective of skin color. Critical race theorists argue that one constructed race becomes an inconstable fact. Jeez. Okay, just give me a minute here because these things are typed up so small. The fonts are so small, and I'm trying to look at it and read. I'm getting old, people. I'm in my mid-40s, so please bear with me when I'm reading this stuff. As Robin DiAngelo explains in White Fragility, while there is no biological race as we understand it, race as a social construct has profound significance and shapes every aspect of our lives. When race is seen in this way, racism is understood as systemic, that is, built into the fabric of societies designed by white people. Jeez. These people are so bad. They are trying to divide us, aren't they? For the benefit of white people, proponents of CRT argue that ideas of white superiority and black inferiority are intrinsic to our language, culture, and interpretations of history. Every aspect of our daily lives, from education, policing, the health service, and employment, assumes a white norm, they argue, and this makes a mockery of equality before the law and the liberal notion of equality of opportunity. As Rennie Edo Lodge explains in Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race If You're White, your race will almost certainly positively impact your life's trajectory in some way. And you probably won't even notice it. In an inescapably circular argument, race is constructed and made meaningful through racism. It is people's everyday experiences within a racist society that create the reality of race. Oh man, this is hard to read for me because it's almost as if they've created something like this to brainwash kids into thinking that we are all divided because of our color, when that is not the case. We are all divided because people like this force us to be divided. And the youth need to understand that. They really do. You know, we're all God's children. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what country you're from. We're all God's children. And God has made us in His image, and there is a reason why we all are different. We have a particular thing that makes us significant from other people individually, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Let me continue. The origins of critical race theory. Here we go. CRT is newly fashionable and highly influential, but it has a long and complex history. Its origins can be traced back to a divide within the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. Now, let's not compare the U.S. Civil Rights Movement to what's going on now, because there is no comparison. There was actual racism happening back then. There were Klans people. And guess what political party is affiliated with the Klans people? You guessed it, the Democrats, and they don't want you to know that. Free speech, democracy, and legal equality were initially considered integral to the fight for civil rights. But by the end of the 1960s, with progress appearing to have stalled and both racism and poverty still major problems, groups within the movement began to question the efficiency of these principles. Many arrived at the conclusion that legal equality not only left social inequality intact, but actually provided the context and justification for its continuation. As the authors of Words That Wound, a key CRT text published in 1993, point out, it became apparent to many who were active in the civil rights movement that dominant conceptions of race, racism, and equality were increasingly incapable of providing any meaningful quantum of racial justice. Having come up against the limits of formal legal equality, the question facing the civil rights movement at this point was how best to achieve social equality. As Helen Pluckrose and James A. Lindsay point out in Cynical Theories, more materialist activists focused on housing, schooling, employment, and income. For some, this led to championing black nationalism and segregation over universal human rights. That's exactly what they did with this whole Bravo Lima Mike thing, okay? Not to mention there's a deeper agenda, and it's not just being black. There's a deeper agenda to that, a more sinister agenda that people don't understand, and I've already explained that in one of my other casts. At the same time, some began to find a home with academia where to quote words that wound. Okay, well, I think I read that already. No, yeah, I read that already. I'm sorry. These academic activists argue that majoritarian self-interest was a critical factor in the ebb and flow of civil rights doctrine. In other words, a white majority society would be unlikely to cede its power voluntarily. A key text to come out of this period was by Derek Bell, Harvard's first dyslexia is settling in. African-American professor. In Race, Racism, and American Law, published in 1970, Bell argued that white people only concede rights when it is in their interest to do so. I think that goes across the board with all politicians. They only concede rights when it's convenient for them, regardless of what color they are, because they are filthy politicians, right? By 1987, his views had crystallized further, and he was able to explain that progress in America race relations is largely a mirage, obscuring the fact that white continue consciously or unconsciously to do all in their power to ensure their dominion and maintain their control. Black scholars found common cause with professors engaged in critical legal studies who sought to formulate a radical left-wing critique of dominant liberal approaches to the law. Together, they drew from liberalism, Marxism, the law and society movement, critical legal studies, feminism, post-structuralism, postmodernism, and neo-protagonism. A key aim was to examine the relationships between naming and reality, knowledge and power. Man, I'm getting lost in these articles because the fonts are so tiny. This marked a splintering from the materialists and a distinct turn around subjectivity. It led to racism being understood not just as legal and economic inequalities, but as social, cultural, and psychological practices. I can't see these words, man. At this point, as Matsuda et al. Tells us, scholars of color within the left began to ask their white colleagues to examine their own racism and to develop optional critiques, not just to dominant conceptions of race and racism, but to the treatment of race within the left as well. Their conclusions presented racism not as isolated instances of conscious bigoted decision-making or prejudiced practice, but as larger systemic, structural, and cultural, as deeply psychologically and socially ingrained. In 1981, Kimberly Crenshaw, then a student of Derek Bell's, led a protest against Harvard Law School when it refused to hire a black professor to teach race, racism, and American law following Bell's departure. Crenshaw, along with others, invited leading academics and practitioners of color to lecture on a course aimed at developing a full account of the legal construction of race and racism. Bringing people together in this joint intellectual project crystallized the ideas underpinning critical race theory. By the end of the 1980s, Crenshaw's work led her to devise a framework she labeled intersectionality, to describe how multiple features of a person's identity can combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. Her 1991 essay, Mapping the Margins, Intersectionality, Identity Politics, and Violence Against Women of Color, has been especially influential. Pluckrose and Lindsay point out the concerns of materialists dominant the critical race movement from the 1970s to the 1980s. However, by the 1990s, a more identity-focused and postmodern understanding of CRT driven primarily by radical black feminists such as Crenshaw, Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Patricia Hill, Collins, and Angela Harris, was becoming increasingly popular. Today, CRT is mainstream, and terms like structural racism now refer to structures of thought far more than any structural material analysis of society. Activists have taken the subjective identitarian these words and psychological understanding of racism developed within universities and transformed it into a list, commandments all must obey. Oh, I got through that, man. That was so painful to read. Okay, here's one thing up front. This is what I notice about all these people. They throw these big words at you. Like, normal people wouldn't understand what the hell are you talking about, to make themselves, appear that they're smart, right? They'll throw these big words at you, and then all of a sudden they'll slide in the race word, and there it is. Their intellects, right? I've noticed that a lot of these liberals, or a lot of people like this, they like to use these I gotta hold myself before I curse. They like to use these words that are so big that the normal person does not understand. Throw in a bunch of that stuff, right? I call that fillers. That's just fillers. And then all of a sudden they throw the race word in there, and bam, they seem like an intelligent person who knows what the hell they're talking about. You ain't fooling this dude. My vocabulary may not be that big, but I can spot a BSer when I see one, or when one's talking to me. Part of my job is to hash through all the BS. My mind has a filter to filter out BS from reality. For most part, not all the time. So it goes back to what I was saying, people. I grew up from the mid 70s to the present day. And as far as racism go, yeah, I've experienced a few things that I thought at the time were race driven. Some discriminatory things that I've experienced were kind of race driven, but I didn't experience that a lot. There were just few moments in time, and I felt that it was because of what I was not necessarily what I was, but not necessarily what I am, but because of what I am not. Okay? And there's going to be people like that, but the percentage of that is very low. The vast majority of people out there, especially people around my generation, and probably, I would say maybe a generation before mine, more than likely they are not racist people. But you know what? We have to divide. We have to divide these people. We have to, because a people who is divided is very easily controllable. And I don't understand why people don't see that. That's the most clear thing I see. Like, they categorize all of us, and they push this they push it to us via entertainment, academia, through music, through movies. They push all these things to divide all of us. So then the people who are on the top of the pyramid control us a lot more easily. And it keeps us on the bottom of the pyramid busy fighting each other, so they don't have to send their own people to destroy us when we're destroying ourselves. I mean, can't you see the strategy there? I can see the strategy there. I'm not buying it. But unfortunately, a lot of young people are buying. They think that everything they learn in school is righteous, when You should always be questioning everything you learn in school. You have to remember, especially in the public school system, right, that government provides money for free education with the public school systems. Now, don't you think that if you're getting free education, that it's not necessarily going to be free? Isn't there some kind of agenda out there that they want you to think? I'm just putting it out there. And I've said multiple times in my podcast that I was always a horrible student. I was not even in school half the time. And now, like I said before, now in hindsight, I understand why. I understand my part in this whole thing called the world. I understand it. It's very easy for me to step out and look at everything. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been through the system all the way through, even pursuing doctorate degrees, not even realizing that they're being more manipulated through the mind. And now that they're so manipulated, they're spreading that BS to other people, to young people. And young people's minds are like sponges. They just soak that thing up without even questioning it. Everything should be questioned, including me, including the information that I give to you here, which is why I'm telling you, look it up yourself. My goal here is to make you do your own research, not for you to follow me or or me to become some kind of big time podcaster. No, my objective here is for you to do your own research and find out what I'm telling you, whether it's true or not. I could care less about having so many people follow me, or I mean, of course it feels like a bonus because it helps support me spread the word even more. But the most important thing here is to make sure that you, as an individual, look up stuff and find the truth yourself. This is what this journey is. This is why I was given this task to do of spreading the truth and spreading the word, because you may not think what I'm telling you is the truth, which is good, because that leads you to do your own research. But you really have to be mindful of where you get your information from too. Be very mindful. Follow that money. Who's funding these media outlets, right? Because the people who fund these media outlets, let's just say mainstream media, for example. The people funding mainstream media have an agenda, and that agenda, and if you have not even figured it out by now with Project Mockingbird, if you can't figure out that all these, it doesn't matter if you're, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, it doesn't matter, because they all say the same thing at the end of the day. And they brainwash you into thinking that they're the truth. Find independent people who have no agenda but telling you what the truth is. The agenda should always be telling the truth. So, I've had enough of speaking about this article because, quite honestly, I've never lived through an actual racist era in my life. As a matter of fact, I embraced the black culture because of hip-hop, R&B, and soul, and I still love that music to this day. Painfully, I do not like the new stuff, but people of my generation can understand why, right? There's no substance or there's no artistic value to what is being pushed out these days. Back in the 90s and the 80s, there were positive messages. There were messages of love. You don't hear that stuff anymore, right? And this thing called mumble rap, what the hell is that? When I first heard that, I said to myself, man, I think I'm losing more brain cells than I did smoking weed listening to this crap, because this I'm beginning to feel kind of dumb as I'm listening to it. See, when you had rappers back in the 90s like Tupac, right? Because Tupac, in my opinion, greatest rapper of all time. People looked at him, people who did not understand hip hop or rap, people did not realize that he was not a gangster rapper. Although his beats and his vibe may come to you as somebody who's a gangster, quote, per se, he was not a gangster rapper. The majority of his rap had to do with social problems, and he was magnifying that through his eyes. He was more of a politician if you look at it. I mean, if you look at it in the way I look at it, he was more of a politician. He was more for making social changes to the world. But, what do I know? I'm just a big fan of the hip hop, R&B, and soul culture, which happens to be heavily influenced by black culture. So, I'm going to go ahead and take a break. And when I come back, we'll talk about the next article. And we are back from the break. So, let's get into the next article that I have here. This one comes out of the conservativetreehouse.com, which was posted on December 26th of 2020 by Sundance. The article reads, "The Calm Within the Storm. President Trump highlights January 6, 2021, Washington, D.C. event." Earlier today, President Trump drew attention to an unofficial January 6, 2021 assembly of We the People planning to attend Washington, D.C. on the date of the congressional certification of the electoral vote. There is much discussion about the Senate vote on 1/6/21 as the culmination of a fraudulently manipulated election outcome. There is also a great deal of foreboding and anxiety as the American electorate watch to see if any legislator will rise to contest or challenge an outcome. The group representing Stop the Steal is working on supporting the January 6 assembly. DC Insider reports indicate Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, piece of shit, is pressuring his GOP senators not to challenge the certification of the election. Meanwhile, President Trump is dealing with even shorter-term battles surrounding Charlie Victor 19, relief and omnibus spending bills, which put him along against the DC legislative class. Our nation is positioned in a very tenuous time. On the legislative contest, President Trump is looking out for the greater interest of the American people while attempting to block the special interest pork spending that benefits everyone except Americans. The urgency of the omnibus and Charlie Victor 19 relief spending creates a narrative contest between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And the timing of that confrontation is in advance of the January 6th certification. Ultimately, Stop the Steal should rest upon the ability of we the people to counteract the intransient and corrupt intent of an entitled political class. And yes, they feel so entitled. They do. However, we are in this weird space where destroying a constitutional republic in order to save it has a larger appeal. It seems unusual to say, and perhaps it is counterintuitive in a traditional political sense, but President Trump could ultimately be stronger leading a 100 million person army from outside DC against this corrupt system that he can be while waging a war all alone inside a system that wants to see him destroyed. Okay, let's just get this straight, okay? I'm going to veer off this article for just 1 minute. President Trump is the mouthpiece of we the people. Okay, so when they want to destroy him, they want to destroy us, ultimately. That's what it boiled down to. Okay? So let's just get that straight. One thing is certain from my vantage point. Our president, Donald Trump, wants what is in the best interest of all of this nation and all of the American people within it. Our president remains what he was from the movement he announced his intent in 2015. An existential threat to those who thrive on the corrupt enterprises and institutions within our government. Metaphorically, on this exact date, December 26 of 1776, General George Washington was contemplating the best interest of his own army following the Battle of Trenton. Washington assembled all of his officers in Trenton to discuss whether they should attack another post, hold their position in Trenton, or retreat back across the Delaware River. Washington decided that because of the condition of his army, the best move was to return to their camps across the river. In many ways, we sent President Trump across the Delaware on November 8th, 2016, to wage a war on our behalf, which is very true. I voted for Trump the first time to give a big middle finger to the system, and that's exactly what it is. Okay? He achieved many victories, far more than any single person could ever deliver, and we remain steadfast in our support. However, we see with new and overwhelming clarity the scale of opposition against our interests, and we note there are few weapons available to deconstruct a network of uni-party alliances that formed over decades of entrenched graft and scheme. Oh, very true. The swamp runs very, very deep, and whether it's just like wrestling, right? It's just like I'm talking about like WWE wrestling, where in front of the cameras they're enemies, but behind closed doors they're friends. Okay. The absence of an anti-corruption armory is by design. The DC infection is metastic. Jeez. Each of us yearns for a victory against the vile and corrupt system, yet the inherent nature of the self-serving DC network is ultimately the same global corrupt system holding many nations captive to the entitled dictates and fiats of a ruling class. Very true. For many people, it is easier to see the globalist trouble around the world, in France and the UK, than here on our own shore, yet it is the exact same enemy carrying out the same fraud and scheme. I'm gonna say this, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but I have been in the know since 2006, and I think I've explained that before too. But the way you can understand everything here, what's going on as far as the politics in DC and everywhere else, is you have to take a step back, right? You have to look at it as not somebody who's in it. You have to step back and look at it as if you were watching, like, let's say, a baseball game or a football game. Because this is exactly what it is. It's all strategy. And the reason why I say that is because I was playing chess with my daughter last night. And man, my daughter, she's only 8. I suck at chess. I really do. But being that I'm more mature, I would think that, damn, I got this game easy, because she's an 8-year-old girl who doesn't really understand how this game is played. But man, she whooped me. She trapped me. She looks at 5 steps ahead than I do. I play in the present, while chess is a game of playing 5 moves ahead. And that tells me a lot about her intellect. But what I'm trying to say is that's how we're supposed to look at all these things going on, is as a spectator. You have to step back and look at the chessboard and the pieces, and why things are being moved, why alliances are being made, and all these moves going on in order for you to understand what's really going on. So yeah, I just wanted to let you people know how I look at things. I put myself out of it, and I watch it as if I'm watching a chess game, and I see how things are being moved, if that makes any sense. Okay, here we go. Back to the article. Regardless of whether Donald Trump's legal arsenal is able to overcome the entrenched media operations drumbeating a deafening noise to distract from the 2020 fraud, hopefully the larger American Make America Great Again army will remain solidly behind the only leader who has proven his worth in this endeavor. And believe me, so far he's proved everything. He's proved that he is for us so far. Okay? The only thing I have, and don't get me wrong, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but I am just, I don't know what it is, but Trump, he's still standing, he's still walking, he's still breathing. When JFK tried to change the whole thing, he was gone immediately, and I'm surprised that this man who stands up to danger, he doesn't run away from it when his Secret Service guys cover him. He runs towards it. And this tells me a lot about him, his fortitude. So, man, I really like this president. I really do. Okay? A lot of people may not agree with the things that he does or says. He may not be like an articulate dude, but you know what? We had an articulate dude before 2016 for 8 years. We had an articulate dude. We had a very charismatic speaker who destroyed this country subtly. Right? This is the type of leader that that this country needs right now. Somebody who is not PC. Somebody who has balls to say stuff that people will cringe on. I'm the same way. Sometimes I just can't. I have to say things for what they are. I mean, I'll try to say it without too much sting, but ultimately, if I can't figure that out, I'm going to have to say it for what it is. Okay, back to the, here we go. Now, it is not the time to take any action against President Trump's intent, which could divide us. The MAGA coalition is the most diverse, widest, and deepest part of the entire American electorate. President Trump's army consists of every creed, color, race, gender, ethnicity, and orientation. It is a truly colorblind coalition, yes it is, of middle America patriots and middle class voters that cuts through the political special interest group. Yes it is. Yes, and it is us, the middle class, that makes this country run. It is not the high class. It is the middle class. We run this country. We make this country what it is. It is us with our hard work, our blood, sweat, and tears. We are the ones that make this country operate. Okay? As CTH noted after the media manipulation of the election began, there is no precedent here. 74 million angry American voters resolved to a common objective is not something to be trifled with. Exactly. Because we ain't, if the numbers are right with the support Trump got, we are a bunch of people who have had it. We're fed up with all this sweet talk that the past presidents have given us, or the past politicians, or even the present politicians have given us. We're tired of all that sweet talk. Okay? We demand action. We demand that the right thing happens now. And you know what? Don't mess with people who just because we have lives that we have to live and provide for our own families, don't think for a minute that true patriots will not fight back. We are what you call the silent majority. Okay? When you start messing with how we provide for our families, that's where the line is drawn, and that's when we'll cross that line. We'll be willing to cross that line because you have messed with my livelihood, right? And God bless you all, you patriots, because I know I'm not the only one feeling this way. Yeah, I know either it was like a show a week ago or a couple weeks ago where I talked about how a lot of people are not awake and all this stuff. Yeah, I may have that opinion based on what I see every time I go to the airport every week, because I do travel every week and I see. Okay? But I think, with people being passive, besides that, I think when people's livelihoods are messed with, I think people will finally realize that, you know what? This whole thing is BS. The government has effed us for so long that we need to take back what we own, because we own them. We pay for their salaries. We own them. We do not know yet where this political crisis and ongoing battle is going to end, but we do know approximately 100 million Americans will not accept the outcome of a political process transparently filled with fraud and manipulation. You think it's been filled with fraud and manipulation? It's been going on for decades. Decades. It's only magnified now because of President Trump. He put a magnifying glass on this thing and we all can see. As a matter of fact, he put a microscope on this thing and we can all see it. That makes President Trump a very dangerous entity to the DC system, regardless of whether they admit what surrounds them. There is no reference point for this scale of our American electorate being disenfranchised by Wall Street, bribery, corporations, media, and big tech. That mega million army is fueled for a stunning and cataclysmic shift in the American political landscape. Steadfast by Sundance. What a great article. What a great article. This is exactly how a lot of middle-class Americans feel. This is how we all feel. And I am so proud to be in this country, and I am so proud to be a citizen of this country. And just as the beginning of this country was born, many people died for the beliefs of freedom. I would do the same thing too. And I know a lot of hot-blooded Americans that are patriots as well would do the same thing. Especially if you have kids, right? I will do whatever it takes for my kids to be free. And if it costs me my life, then it's so worth it. It is so worth dying for. Freedom for my children is worth it. And I know a lot of patriots out there think the same way, especially those who have children who want to be free. I am so proud to be part of this country. So, this article was awesome. It was a good read. And the date is approaching, people. Today's Monday. In 2 days, Patriots are going to be all over DC. And we have yet to see what's going to happen. I won't be able to go there. As much as I want to go there, and as much as my spirit will be there, physically, I can't. Okay? I would call in sick in a heartbeat just to go there. Here's my dilemma though, okay? Last year, I did not have a Thanksgiving with my family. I did not have a Christmas with my family. I did not have a New Year's with my family. Wednesday is my daughter's birthday. And what's the coincidence of that? My daughter being born on January 6th, where this big event is about to happen. God works in very mysterious ways. Very mysterious ways. And if we're gonna call every January 6th from now on Patriots Day, then what a perfect time for my daughter to be born. So the reason why I can't show up is because I have to celebrate with my daughter. I have to. It's not I want to, or it's, of course I want to, right? But I owe it to my family to be there when a special day comes. And I've already given up 3 very, very important holidays because I have to provide for my family. So in the line of work, there are no holidays unless you're off on those days. I mean, you can request a day off and stuff, but it's a very hard thing to do when you have good conscience in your mind and your heart, and you're very thoughtful of other people. It's a very hard thing to do, to call in sick or to request a day off. Especially when your partners rely on you to be there, you know? So, I'm glad I closed off today's show with this article. And like I said, I will pray for the Patriots that are going to be there on the 6th of January. I will pray. And I hope, as much as I hope that nothing goes wrong, I hope that there's no violence, because right-minded people don't want violence. The only time violence should be implemented is if you're defending yourself. So I will pray for the Patriots out there. My spirit will be with you. And I know it's a cheesy thing to say, and it's easy for me to say that because I won't be there. But hey, as much as this country is a priority to me, my family needs me. And God did not intend me to be over there that day. God intended me to be behind this mic to fight this way. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a very big proponent of defending yourself when need be. I don't go out there looking for anything, but if it comes to me, I will end it. So should every Christian American out there. We do not resort to violence unless we are being violated upon first. So, I'm so glad for today's show. This show was very good, and it started off with a great read. And I like the direction that God is taking me into, as far as like choosing what articles to review or talk about, or even what kind of message I'm trying to convey out there. I'm so glad that God steered me towards this today, because I'm feeling so good, and I'm feeling so like a positive energy around me. And I haven't felt like this in a long time. I've been cut down by negativity so long. Almost 15 years. No, I should change that. Almost, I would say almost 12 to 13 years. And a lot of that negativity has come from work. But I'm an old school man, and I believe you do what it takes in order for you to provide for your family, within reason, of course. No law breaking or whatever. But last year, as much as everybody wants to think last year was a bad year, and it was It was a very horrible year. It's probably going to be one of the worst years in history. That's going to be marked in books as one of the deepest and darkest times that this country has ever faced. I'm going to embrace last year. I got baptized last year. God gave me this he assigned this to me. Right? My relationship with the Lord has gotten stronger last year. Yes, I still struggle with sin. Like I said, I still struggle. But you know what? Last year made me closer to God. And that's a powerful thing. And I feel so good about it. So, I really hope you guys do the same thing and strengthen your relationship with God. You people who are going to be in DC on the 6th, please be careful. And I understand why you are going. And I would love to go too. I would really love to go and support. But that's not my calling. My calling is to fight the battle behind this mic. My battle is to talk to people. To explain what the truth, like to tell them what the truth is, or to even convince them of doing their own research. That's the battle that I have to fight, because that's what was assigned to me by God. But like I said, don't get me wrong. When my family or I get violated in a violent way, I will come back 10 times worse. And that's how right-minded people should be. Not go out there and look for it. And like I said, I will pray for you patriots who are going out there. And I wish I can go. I wish. But I have to spend time with my daughter on her birthday, because I did not give her Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So I owe it to my daughter this time. So, with that being said,
the bar is now closed.
I can't help but wonder if I'm under a spell. It's more than a passing notion. I've never fallen with such devotion. I can't help but wonder if it's only a dream. Am I naive, or can I believe that things are really as they seem? Can anyone explain it? How to understand what's true? I know I just can't tame it. Whenever I'm with you, I can't help but wonder if you wonder about me. 'Cause lately I can't help but wonder how wonderful this might be. explain it, how to understand what's true. I know I just can't take it whenever I'm with you. I can't help but wonder if you wonder about me, 'cause lately I can't help but wonder how wonderful this might be, 'cause lately I can't help but wonder